Bob, are you ready? Okay, I want to welcome everyone to our January 8th, 2018 City Council work session. Hope everyone had a good holiday. First item on the agenda is a presentation by Mr. Pranav of Chase Hospitality. Mr. Rex Phelps will be introducing Mr. Pranav.
Good evening, Mayor and the Council. Mr. Pranav owns some property at the northeast corner of 820 and Beach Street. He's already done some development here in Haltom City, and he's got a really exciting development that he wants to do here. And we asked him if he'd be willing to come and talk with the council and just tell you a little bit about himself and what he wants to bring here. So with that, I'd just like to bring up Dilip Pranav from Chase Hospitality. Yep.
Honorable Mayor, council members, I appreciate you spending a few minutes for this presentation. I know you have a busy schedule tonight. I just wanted to quickly give you an overview and a little deck presentation. I'll tell you about who I am, what our company does, what the project entails, and basically the timeline of the project. My name is Dilip Pranav. I represent Chase Hospitality, and we're based in Irving, Texas. We've been in business since 1991. And currently we have 6 hotels. I'm going to sort of look over there, if you don't mind, and present it.
Sure thing.
Currently we have 6 hotels under construction and obviously based in the DFW area. Our forte is hospitality. We develop, we manage the properties, and we typically hold them for a significant amount of time. Our oldest property is 22 years old, and our newest property is about 2.5 years old. This is just the current portfolio of the Marriott flags that we currently own and operate in the DFW area. This happens to be in Dallas. This is at DFW South at the 183 and Valley View Lane. Our residence is adjacent to that courtyard in South Irving. This is in Las Colinas in Irving. And this Spring Hill is up at Preston Road and 121. And this one is in Denton. We went a little bit further out. Currently we have 3 Fairfields, one in Coppell, one in Arlington, in Plano, under various stages of construction, about 40, 60, and 75%. We have a Spring Hill Suites we just broke ground in Coppell. A Courtyard Frisco is at Toll Road and Main Street. It's a 6-story, 148-room property that we've just broken ground on. And the residence in Arlington is about 80% complete. So these are our 6 properties under construction. Now, just to discuss the Haltom City project, we've owned the 20-acre lot for over 10 years. It was an investment piece, and we feel like at the moment, at this time in the market cycle, that it'd be a good time to start thinking of developing the property. And since we have enough land to develop, we decided to do 2 hotels there. And our vision is to do 2 Marriott hotels. One brand is the Aloft brand, and the second brand is the Town Place Suites. We also want to have some restaurant sites. We've been trying to build up a relationship with CBRE to develop at least 2 sit-down restaurants, community service, and some retail around the hotels. It's a little hard to tell here, but I'll set this pointer. This is the quadrant of 20 acres at 820 and Beach, northeast corner. The hotel that we're contemplating, this will be the Aloft. It's a Marriott brand. And this will be the Town Place Suites, an extended stay concept, will be another Marriott brand. Our goal is to bring a couple of sit-down restaurants in front of the hotels, and then community service, retail around the frontage and on the back roads. This particular section, what I'm pointing there, is the kind of detention pond. This is a very preliminary site plan that we've already presented to the city staff, and we kind of obviously massage it a little bit as we get into more serious feasibility of project. I want to tell you a little bit about the Aloft brand. It's a lifestyle brand. It used to be part of the Starwood hotels, which merged with the Marriott group last year. It caters to, I would say, the millennials all the way up to the I would say not as much as the baby boomers, but Marriott's kind of decided that this modern concept is something that will serve the general public for the next 10 or 15 years with some style and some design. Gives you a sense of, let me go back, just modern lifestyle. It's meant to cater to both business and leisure. It has a lounge area, a small restaurant. We plan to do 2,500 square foot of meeting space in this hotel. There's a bar, obviously, as you can tell. And then the Town Place Suites is an extended stay brand. We are catering to the relocation business, the training business. Anybody with, I believe you also have some experience in the city where there are some kind of disasters at home, fire, whatever. Insurance companies typically like to relocate families. This is a nice middle budget hotel that will allow families to relocate during those certain difficult times. We kind of done an initial feasibility, and we're going to try to market our 2 hotels in a 3-mile neighborhood of this particular location. With I-35, 820, the traffic, the development, we believe that the hotels will be successful. The Town Place Suites, there's some interior shots of it. Each property has its unique and identity. In this case, it's a complimentary breakfast, small seating area, and basic suites that allow people to live there for a week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks, depending on their requirements. Aloft, on the other hand, is more of a business leisure hotel, overnight stays, 2 nights, average stays. So it's completely 2 different concepts, and they work well and complement each other. Our timeline is to get these hotels started in first quarter of 2019, and I'd like to sort of announce to you that we have approval from Marriott for both flags, so we are not kind of posturing here. We own the land. Marriott has approved both concepts, and we're ready to move to the next phase. Just wanted to give you a sense that that's one of the reasons I'd like to present it to you today. Our goals, obviously, to build those 2 hotels and have them as the catalyst for that 20-acre development. Market through CBRE, the strip center sites, the restaurant sites, and as an owner of the 20-acre site, our goal is to have those hotels be successful, so it's not just quick sale and get out. So we don't mind ground leasing just to allow some restaurant developments rather than just ask for the highest dollars per square foot and trying to maximize our value of the land. The idea is to have the hotels have the services around it so they both succeed. We plan to work with CBRE and some of the other real estate companies to do regional brands. We've noticed that national brands typically like, I suppose, a higher density and other kinds of markets. We feel like for 820 and Beach, regional companies might be the best fit for us. The development itself, the 20 acres, we'd like to make sure that other than the 2 hotels that we have additional restrictions put on our 20-acre site other than just the restaurant, the city of Haltom City standards, so that it doesn't kind of look like the southeast corner. If you're all familiar with the other hotels that are there, they're all kind of chopped up. The access is a little weird, and landscaping and other setbacks are really very tight. So it doesn't feel good when you enter the sites. It's just very choppy. So we try to plan this better. I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of what we've done, what we plan to do here, and give you an opportunity to ask me any questions if you have. But I want to make sure you understand this is just a presentation. We're excited to do 2 hotel deals and kind of work with the land around our hotels.
Thank you, Mr. Pronoff. Did I pronounce your last name correct,
thank
Pronoff?
you.
Okay, thank you. Excellent presentation, and we're certainly looking forward to your developments here. Councilmember Fowler, do you have a question for Mr. Pronoff?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Pronoff. I appreciate your interest in our community. I know you've retained that land for many, many years, as you'd stated earlier.
Yeah.
Can you go back to your preliminary plat that you
Yes.
put up? And we realize the staff has let us know that y'all have already worked with TxDOT on the ingress, egress, and some of the issues there, and y'all been, y'all are serious about doing this, and
Yes.
we do appreciate your showing interest in our community. That one open space area, do you have a forecast or projection of what that could potentially be?
At this moment, I'm just speculating, but I haven't really thought about what would work. I'd rather kind of just see how the 2 hotels create what kind of catalyst.
Okay.
And then we may not even have the front 2 right there. We may not have that, and then it could be chopped up where it goes like a little deeper from there to there. So it could be 2 rectangular sites coming towards the hotels. We're not sure at the moment.
Okay.
It's an interior lot, so we kind of let the market decide which way
Sure.
it's going to go.
But that's fair enough. I just
And even the detention pond, even though we put it there, that could slide a little bit depending on what happens. If these 2 do well, and we kind of suspect they will, my goal is to probably add a 3rd one. So we kind of don't know exactly what we're going to do in this area. So we'll just have to look at how these 2 do as well. Because I like to do a 3rd property that I have some ideas about,
But you do feel fairly comfortable with your pad sites for the restaurants and hotels and that?
Yeah, I mean, I put them all in the frontage there, but these can be flexible, in the sense of the sizing. We had to sort of show something at the moment, but it could be a slightly smaller pad, it could be a slightly bigger pad based on the restaurant concept.
Okay. And
Very preliminary, but kind of have my heart set on where I want these 2 hotels with the visibility that they're parallel to 820. They sit up a little bit high. The land has got a little crown on it, so the visibility and the curb appeal will be great. The signage will be right across from 820. And I just believe that since I've owned it for 10 years, the land, there are some other hotels. Obviously, the city of Fort Worth is right next to us. And what I've noticed is I've been tracking it, but most of those hotels are now 15 years plus. So they've aged. Some have been kept up very well. Some are just very budget oriented and so forth. So I believe these 2 will hit the mark for that area.
and I'm very pleased and very encouraged in the product that you're presenting to us. So we do want to thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Are there any other questions or comments from the council for Mr. Pronoff? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Van Nieuwenhuis, discussion of the 44th Community Development Block Grant Project.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It was 2 years ago that I last spoke to you about the Community Development Block Grant Program, commonly referred to as CDBG program. It is a federal program. It's administered through the Housing and Urban Development Department, and it is a program where they give cities, maybe other entities as well, funding for a city of our size on an every other year basis. It is a program in the federal budget that at least the current administration is looking at cutting. In fact, if you look at my next slide, our 42nd year project, which was the Mini Street water main, we had actually received $169,000 for that project. For the current year, the 44th year, we're anticipated to receive $130,000. When all is said and done, it wouldn't surprise me if we get a few dollars more, but I wouldn't estimate that it would be $169 like it was 2 years ago. Speaking of 2 years ago, at that time, I had brought a couple of projects to your attention. In previous years, we had done street projects, which also include the water main and the sanitary sewer main. Those projects ended up being around $1 million. When CDBG funding was, 2 to 3 times what it is now, that wasn't an issue. with the county. On these projects, the county's the actual owner of the project during construction. The contractor will be under contract with the county, not with us. So they didn't really like being on the hook for $1 million when the city's was only going to receive $150,000. So they've asked us to pick a project that's no more than $500,000. When I spoke to you 2 years ago, the project that city staff, and when I say city staff, Public Works has worked closely with the fire department. We thought perhaps replacing some water mains where we have 2-inch water mains in residential neighborhoods to upgrade them to 6-inch water mains. And the main reason for that is 2-inch water main, you cannot attach a fire hydrant to it. So some of the core services that a city provides, police, fire. So we thought fire protection was pretty important. And the project we picked 2 years ago was Minnie Street, which is just a couple of blocks east of the Public Works facility off of 28th Street to Hollis. At that time, I showed you another project that, if this project 2 years ago went well, I would probably be recommending to you 2 years later, which is now, and that project is this one here. And that's to replace the water main in Oak Knoll Drive and McNutt. And Oak Knoll would stretch from Belknap to Parish Road. I think you know where that is. This is the Fuel City, to give you an idea. This is Parish Road right along the bottom, Belknap. So that's a project that we kind of put on the back burner 2 years ago and said, we'll look at this project, the next time CDBG funds come around. And that project, the 2 water mains together, I'm going to estimate at just under $500,000. So it fits the criteria. One thing I might have failed to mention is the funding for this program can only be used in certain parts of the city. There are areas where the census has identified low to moderate income. So quite a bit of the south side of Haltom City fits that category. So we did look at one other project, and that was extending a 2-inch water main, converting it to an 8-inch water main along Belknap from, this is Eagle Carports right here, and then you have Carson right here. So that project estimated out at $337,000, again meets the criteria. From meeting with the fire department just in the last couple of weeks, and based on what they've had with their experience with fires, it was their recommendation and mine too to go with the Oak Knoll and McNutt project. However, I kind of wanted to bring that to your attention, see if you had any thoughts otherwise, because on your next meeting on January 22nd, there will be a public hearing to formally approve a project and submit it to Tarrant County. So at this time, I kind of at least wanted to give you a couple of options and listen to see if you had any thoughts on this.
Thank you, Greg. Let's see Councilman McGraw.
Hey, Greg. The Oakwood, I guess between the two projects, because I know we're ISO, the insurance, which one would be more beneficial for the ISO?
I'm glad you brought that up. I failed to mention that as well. That was one of the reasons that the fire department really wanted us to contemplate doing the Oak Knoll McNutt project, because it will help with our ISO rating.
All right. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, Councilman McGraw. Are there any other questions or comments from the council for Greg? Okay. So, Greg, now, what direction or do you need from the council before the next meeting?
So it sounds like Oak Knoll and McNutt's a viable project that we'd like to submit to the county. So at your next meeting, there will be an agenda item, which will be a formal public hearing to hear from the public. And if there's public comment, and that's the way the city wants to go, after that meeting, I'll have a resolution for the mayor to sign. We'll submit that to Tarrant County, and that should be our next CDBG project.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on, discussion of possible May 2018 bond election. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, we've been working for the last year on a bond proposal. This is kind of a breakdown of where we are right now. You can see by the first bullet point, the council's decided on a multi-story structure located on EDC property south of the library at Glenview and Haltom Road. Building will combine the law enforcement center with City Hall operations. The needs assessment has dictated about 67,000 square feet. We figured the cost at $370 per square foot, with a total cost of $28,900,000. That's for the combined facility. And then bullet point 2 is the Fire Station 3 replacement relocation to the EDC property located at Northern Cross and Old Denton Road. It's going to be with structure and bays. It's going to be approximately 15,000 square feet at $310 per square foot. Total cost of $5.5 million. There was quite a bit of talk about where we were sourcing our costs a few months ago, so I listed out for you the sources that we drew for our costs. It was Hewitt Zollers. Y'all all know Hewitt Zollers. GSBS, which is an architectural firm. Mr. Brown had recommended that we meet with Byrne Construction Services, which we did. It just so happens that Byrne Construction Services uses GSBS architects. And then the last one we met, it was after the last workshop we had on and met with a representative of Schwab companies who are also builders in the area. So those are our sources, and that's how we came up with the approximate costs. On December 14th of 2017, the EDC board voted to make these properties available to the city if the bond passes in May of 2018. And to specify what made available means, it would mean that the EDC would decide whether to donate, lease, or purchase, or have the city purchase the land. Information on costs have been sent to the city's financial advisor and bond counsel for formatting and timetable development. It'll be kind of like we did at the end of last year. And then your final date to call the election will be the city council meeting on February 12th of 2018.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the council for our city manager or staff? Councilmember Grove.
Do we have a footprint for the fire station number 3, because that corner lot is kind of strange because there's a wall there?
It is a strange lot. We've been working with Hewitt Zollers on that for about 6 months now, and what they're doing is they're developing a footprint. It's based on what Chief Bynum and the fire department needs as far as how they want the circulation to work, the bays, and that kind of thing. So there's several different footprints you can put on that property based on. I know I spoke to you one day about it, and I think you were thinking in terms of a single-story structure, and it's going to be a multi-story structure.
Yeah. But just to the east of our property, some church owns property to the east of it, and they have zero access to that property because there's a wall, to the north of theirs, and so there's no way. So they need some, right away to be able to get to their property. And the most logical place is to run parallel with the access road with a drive onto that access road.
Yeah, and that'll be part of the configuration that the architects are working on. But they've looked at the property numerous times. We're in the process of surveying it now, and there's not just one footprint to use for a fire station. So we've talked about the fact that it'll have to be a multi-story structure.
Okay. So do you think we'll have an ETA, so at least we can see how the footprint's going to lay out with the easement?
Yeah, the next meeting with Hewitt Zollers is on the 12th, Chief, is that right? On the 12th, so it should be not too long after that. They've already given some proposed footprints. I think the first time they submitted it to us, they had 4 different configurations, and then Chief met with them and followed up to kind of narrow it down to the configuration that's going to work.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Grove. Are there any other questions or comments? Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Now, on this 34.4, does that include anything for if there's, increase in costs? Did they allow for padding in this, or would we need to take a little bit additional into consideration?
This is 370 square foot, and the total is in parentheses quotation marks because there are other costs that go into professional services, permitting, IT, furnishings, and that type of thing. But the $370 a square foot is for the new construction.
Okay,
and they felt all those sources felt pretty yes, sir.
Okay. So that's an all-in cost of $370.
Yes, sir.
$370 a foot. It's an all-in.
Okay.
Well, it's for new construction.
New construction.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And that would be for the facilities, not for any deal we made with Economic Development Corporation.
That's correct. And as you know, as an EDC board member, we weren't given direction on whether or not we would purchase it or a price. So we would have to figure that afterwards on whatever the EDC decided.
Which we have time to do that, but I don't know that the EDC was necessarily looking at some different options on making it to where it's affordable, but yet also takes into consideration the Economic Development Corporation's longevity also.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. Fair enough. I appreciate y'all's work on that.
Sure.
And but the actual, so the election needs to be called on the 12th, but the actual drop dead has to be done by February 16th. Is that correct, Mr. Camacho?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Yeah, the absolute last day to call a special election is February 16th.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So, Keith, what direction, if any, do you need from the council tonight?
No direction, Mayor. This was just for informational purposes. As I said, the financial advisor and bond counsel are working on the formatting and timetable. So the meeting on the 22nd,
Okay.
we'll follow up on that information.
Councilmember Fowler, do you have another question?
Well, that was, I think, the manager answered the question, so that we'll have a little bit better idea on the meeting of January 22nd and timetable and all. I mean, kind of a little just. And this is great. This helps a lot. But I mean, if we need to discuss anything else, we can discuss it then or set up another. Once, like Councilmember Gross said, once we get some renderings back, we can look at it then.
Yes, sir. We can get as soon as we get the renderings, we can get those to you. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. With that being said, we have nothing else to discuss. It is, 6:35. We'll take a 5-minute recess and then go adjourn into executive session pursuant to 551.071 and 072 of the Texas Government Code at 6:35.
Layla, did you put one up here for yourself? Oh, just for somebody. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I want to welcome everyone to our January 8th, 2018 City Council meeting. The time now is 7:18. If you're looking at the agenda, the first item on the agenda is the invocation of Pledge of Allegiance, which will be provided by our Assistant City Manager, Rex Phelps. Would please rise.
If you would bow your heads. Lord, we come before you tonight with humble hearts. We just ask that you would live in our hearts and guide our minds and bless this council as they make decisions that would be good for this community, be best for this community, and would make decisions that would please you. Lord, we thank you for all your love, your mercy, and your grace. We thank you for all that you've always been, all that you always are, and all that you always will be. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Moving right along to the announcements and events, our City Secretary, Art Camacho.
Thank you, Mayor. The announcements for January 8th, 2018 in the Parks and Recreation Community Projects. Under Community Projects, Carson Street under State Highway 121 will remain closed for approximately 8 months to a year, and frontage road information will be displayed on the variable message signboards. Waste Connections will be offering free Christmas tree recycling at their transfer station at 2120 Menace Drive through January 14th from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The 2018 Haltom Stampede is Saturday. pickup at City Hall, the Public Library, and the Rec Center, but supplies are limited. Volunteers are needed to read to classes of the BISD elementary students during the World Read Aloud Week, January 29th through February 2nd. Registration link and more details are on the Community Projects page of the city website. While the decorations are now put away, a special thanks is extended to everyone who decorated their homes for the Christmas season. The 18 neighborhood decorating contest winners are listed on the city's website, and a thanks is given to the Keep Haltom City Beautiful and the community for keeping this fun holiday tradition going. In regard to the public library, teen programs, family movie night, adult GED, and ESL classes, and other library activities are all listed on the library's website for the date and times. One thing they're including is the AARP tax preparation help, and registration for an appointment now can be made by calling 817-222-7787. The days and times are Thursdays from 12 noon to 4 p.m. starting February 8th, 2018. And that's all we have for community for announcements, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. Moving right along to the fire department equipment status update. Mr. Chief Bynum. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Council. Tonight, I want to give you a quick update of the status of our fire apparatus. I'll try to make it as short as I could to allow you to have enough time to understand the status of our fleet for tonight. So moving right along, what I have first on the first slide, I have a list of our fire apparatus, whether the age of the apparatus and a replacement date, replacement schedule, if you will. We have a replacement schedule for all of our fleet in the fire department, and this gives you a good representation of our fire apparatus. You can see several items there have asterisks beside them. You'll see on engine 476 is a reserve apparatus. It's a 1993 model KME. Council, Mayor, our fleet is definitely showing its age, and I say that due to the fact that we've had numerous times throughout the fall of 17 and now in 18 where we have no reserve apparatus available to go in service if we have an engine or a truck go out of service. We have 4 frontline apparatus and we keep 2 reserve apparatus, and you'll see those as engine 476 and engine 475, and then you'll see our 4 frontline apparatus there, and you see the ages of those, and you'll see the replacement schedules for those. Obviously these are dependent on your decision making here as when those replacements are actually made. The next slide I have here just gives you a quick snapshot of the amount of hours our apparatus has been out of service. This is just since October. And during that time frame, we've had numerous times where, just like today, we have no reserve apparatus if an apparatus goes out of service. And we have one of our apparatus that the guys are been operating on it since before the holidays with no heater because we have no trucks available to go in service so he can get repaired. The guys are doing a great job maintaining the service level to the citizens of Haltom City. Obviously, we have a plan that goes in effect if we do get to that point we have no reserve apparatus and we get down, say, to 3 apparatus. We have agreements with neighboring cities where we can use one of their apparatus to help us if need be, and we also have different delivery models to allow for service delivery to the citizens of Haltom City. I have the next slide you'll see is a spec truck, just as for you to look at if we decided to make a replacement, and this is just a spec truck that's going online, and you can see the cost of that in comparison to what I delivered back in budget of a complete spec'd out engine. It's not cheap, and I get that, and you still see a delivery time frame of 120 days. If we ordered that truck in sometime next month, you'll still see how long it takes to get that truck here to to allow us to have another apparatus so we can phase out the 1993 KME. That would be the plan, to replace the KME, and the engine 471 would go in reserve. That would be the plan, to put engine 471 in reserve and take the KME totally out of service. And once again, this is a very short presentation I gave y'all tonight. The manager asked that I give you a good presentation, a short one, so you can have an understanding of what we're facing in the fire department. And with that, the cost of fire engines is not cheap. We take this very seriously, and my job as a fire chief is to make sure that I deliver the service delivery to the citizens of Haltom City. So tonight, what I've offered you is what our replacement schedule looks like, the conditions of our fire apparatus. You'll see the ages of our apparatus, and they're getting older. They're showing their age. So with that, I'll just give you one more piece of information. As of today, we have engine 471 and engine 475 are still out of service. They'll be out of service for several more weeks. We have engine 473, Quint 472, truck 471, engine 476 all in service today. 473 is waiting for another apparatus to get in service so it can go out of service. It has some oil issues, so it'll be going out of service as soon as we can get a replacement, another one of these trucks back in service. The Quint has some small issues that need to be addressed, but once again, we're trying to keep trucks in service to maintain service delivery to citizens of Haltom City. So that's my presentation tonight. And if council feels the necessity to go ahead and make a purchase at this time of the year, we have an apparatus committee. It's met. They put together, they have this proposal for an engine. It's a spec engine that we can move forward with at your next council meeting if that's something you'd like to do. Once again, our fleet does a great job. Our shop does a great job. The trucks are just getting older, and we run a lot of calls. They're in service, and these trucks don't sit much. So, Mayor, Council, that's the extent of my presentation tonight. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Chief Bynum. Dr. Trong.
Can you go back one slide, please, Chief? When you say the basic engine replacement cost $485,000, what do you mean the engine, the whole truck?
Yes, sir. Excuse my use of words there. That's a fire engine, the whole engine itself, not just the motor. That's the whole fire apparatus, sir. And that is a spec truck. The $20,000 is just to be able to add some of the items we need for our medical areas and stuff like that to get the truck where we can put it in service.
This is a number you come up with from where?
It's from the vendors, the fire truck vendors themselves. Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I went to TML conference and I saw a lot of pretty good engine that don't cost this much, you know.
Yes, sir.
Even the cost like around $350,000, and they showed me all the operation, and I'm really impressed.
Yes, sir.
And I suggest if, you know, I know that, you know, city manager or you, before buying something like this, will do a lot of research, make sure we get the best, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but my question, because I saw just basic engine replacement, you know, I thought that what kind of engine is it?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I should have put that in better verbiage there for you. And what has happened, we have an apparatus committee, and they've met. They met with several of the fire truck vendors, and they've come down to a truck that could be delivered in a short time frame. And this is less expensive than the truck that I had proposed in a decision package back in last year's budget. And you're right, Councilman, the price of fire trucks continue to go up. And it just depends on, obviously, like everything else we do, what we need and, you know, what the expectation is for that truck to last. Our goal is 16 years, 8 years to 10 years frontline, and then obviously either 8 years or 6 years in reserve. That's what we try to get out of a fire apparatus. We've done a great job with the KME. Shop's done a great job keeping it running. being a 93 or 25-year-old truck.
You know, okay, for example, you replace one of them. How much average you can get back from the old one? Because some small city may buy it, right?
Yes, sir. We have received some bids for that KME, and then we received some preliminary bids of between $5,200 and $5,500.
That's it?
That's it.
Maybe buy one and fix it and drive it.
Keep it.
I couldn't believe it.
Chief, a question that I have before we go to Councilmember Grow.
Thank you, Councilman.
Last month, I guess, when we were down at the Fire Station 1, you had in one of the bays, the furthest east bay, there was a truck there that didn't have any badging or any decals on it, but I guess that was going somewhere else. Is what you're proposing is something similar to that truck?
That was the exact truck. That was a Spartan truck,
Okay.
and that's the exact one. And that one there, it went to Corsicana. That was their truck, and they had it here to demo. And another truck vendor brought their truck in to demo too, Mayor. Yes, sir.
Okay, so for those of you who were there back in December, if you've seen that truck that was there, that's what they're referring to. Councilmember Grow.
Chief, can you go back a couple slides where you had all the apparatuses listed with their?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's kind of small. So, what are the age ranges on these?
Let me walk those out for you, Councilman.
I see a 93,
The
05,
engine
7.
476, it is a 93 model KME. Engine 475 is a 2005 Rosenbauer. Engine 471, which is a frontline apparatus, is 2007 Rosenbauer. Engine 473 is a 2008 Rosenbauer. Quint 472 is a 2012 Rosenbauer, and Truck 471 is a 2013 Rosenbauer.
Okay, and so we're looking at the 93 going away.
Yes, sir.
And do we have because we went to, you're gonna have to help me, that Northeast Tarrant Fire Association where we're part of NEFTA. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And we just implemented NEFTA implemented a fire apparatus replacement fund or something
For
like that.
NEFTA.
Yeah,
Yes,
for
sir.
NEFTA. And so are we doing anything like that for the city? Because, you say you want to have a 16-year lifespan on a front line and then hold it in reserves for another 5 years or 4 years, so you have ultimately a 20-year span on this apparatus.
Yes, sir.
So are we programming, because I don't remember anything in the budget that programs replacement vehicles, or at least particularly fire apparatus? Because
Chief, I'll get this. If you recall, 3 years ago, we implemented a fleet replacement fund.
yes.
We established a fund, and the idea behind that fund was that we would build it up so we could pay cash.
For these things.
Yes. And at that time, it was cash for any fleet replacements that we purchased.
Yeah.
And then you'll remember this year we entered into a private partnership
Enterprise. Yep.
with Enterprise, and the reasoning, if you'll remember from the budget workshops, is the money that we'll save on the small fleet operations, we can transfer that money into large fleet replacement.
Right. Okay.
So I'm going to ask Jennifer to get up here in a minute. She's going to let you know how much we have in that fund. The Chief Bynum asked for this engine to be replaced in fiscal 17, in fiscal 18, this year right now.
Yeah.
In our discussions with him,
Postpone that until
yes,
Enterprise takes hold.
exactly. Now, since we closed out fiscal 17, we, and Jennifer will explain this in detail, but we did very well managing the budget last year, so she was able to put enough money in that fleet replacement fund where we can buy this engine with cash. We don't have to issue any debt for it, which was the original purpose of the fleet replacement fund.
We should have had Jennifer up here along with Chief Bynum.
Yeah, don't worry, I've already warned Jennifer she's going to have to be up here. But so, as you recall, Mr. Grove, maybe from the prompting, is that we did establish that fund for this exact reason.
Because we just outlaid, I guess last year we outlaid $100K or more for police cars.
Yes. And now the police vehicles now have been taken over by Enterprise.
Yep.
So all of our small fleet operations, we're going to save enough money in small fleet operations to be able to pay cash for dump trucks, fire engines, street sweepers, the large equipment. So that fund is functioning exactly like it's supposed to. So I'll let Jennifer tell you how much we were able to put in that fund after fiscal 17 closed out. So Jennifer,
Okay, we were trying to put a 500,000 in that fund so that we'll be able to purchase the engines. You know, usually the engines are the ones that deplete the fund, I would say. And so we should be able to purchase this one if it is about 500,000, you know, without any problem.
Okay. That,
and I'll just follow up on that, Mr. Groh, too. You know, typically this is classified as an emergency situation. We have no more backup apparatus. So typically what cities would do in this case is draw down on their fund balance.
right.
But the reason that we put the fleet replacement fund in there is if we had an emergency situation with a piece of public safety equipment, we would be able to pay cash for that and not have to issue debt for it. So, like I said, the fund is functioning exactly like it was set up for, and because of that, we wouldn't have to draw down on the fund balance to replace them right now.
Right. And because of enterprise, it just topped the fund out quicker, maybe.
Yes, that, and we had some, budget savings from last year. The department directors did a great job managing the budget, so we came in under budget. So that allowed Jennifer to take some more money and place it in that fleet replacement fund as well.
Okay, thank you.
This is something similar to what happened back several years back when we bought our first ladder truck, the shorter of the two, because the other one burned. So we had to get something pretty quickly. So this is kind of the same scenario here, except in this instance we're able to pay cash for.
Yeah, and I think, Perry, you and I discussed this too. One of our big issues was that engine burning up.
Yes, sir.
Kind of started the whole ball rolling where we had to replace apparatus.
That's correct.
Faster than normal.
Yes, sir.
Council members Thompson and then Fowler.
Chief Bonner, is just out of curiosity, is there any way that we could get grant money, even though we have this money? Would there be any chance that we could obtain grant monies for?
There's AFG is a grant process. Getting fire engines under AFG is very difficult. Generally, AFG grants for apparatus of this nature go to volunteer departments that are more in the rural areas. So AFG really works in that arena.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Councilmember Fowler.
Ms. Fung, on this, when you said we put funding in there, is it from, and I realize it's from fund balance savings, but are we doing a depreciation on these? Do we have a depreciation program for these engines?
All the depreciation, yes. We are kind of trying to do it every year, so that we'll be able to have a schedule for replacing all those.
So that's a lukewarm yes, is what you're saying?
A kind of yes.
Okay. Well, are we depreciating when we get a new engine replaced, or are we depreciating the others every year and putting that funding into that?
Yeah, in the government-wide, statement, we have to calculate all the depreciation for every single thing.
But is it going into that fund?
No.
No.
But we are trying to put in some money in that every year.
From where?
From general fund to there, because fire department is a general fund.
Right, I understand that. So really, any savings we get from enterprise, from the changeover to enterprise, really needs to go in there for depreciation. Is that correct? Is that what our intentions are?
Yeah, that and the fact, again, it goes back to the reason for establishing this type of fund is so that we don't have to draw down on the fund balance in an emergency. And what we do is we look at, in an emergency, what would be our large expenditures, having to replace an engine. A few years ago we had the incident where we had an engine catch fire. So what you look at is when you decide where to place that money from budget savings, you look at what's going to keep us from having to draw down on the fund balance. And this is one of the areas that we identified several years ago that we could keep from, and again, not having to issue debt for the purchase of large fleet.
Which I appreciate that. One other question. The insurance proceeds from since I'm assuming it's partly self-insurance, partly TML?
We are insured
from
TML.
So where did that funding go for the engine that burned?
That was pre-us.
That was,
Tony might know that.
That was before me. I think that usually when we have insurance recovery, it goes to the general fund.
Yeah, I think that was like in 2011 or 2012, sometime along in there. That was.
And I understand it was prior to having this, but
Yeah. we
need to make sure that when moving forward that we specify that any of those proceeds go directly into that fund, and we need to. I would hope
We
that
can
we
do
would.
that, but before my time, you don't have that fund at all.
Yeah, and we do the same thing in regards to a few years ago. We purchased 3 police vehicles from Crime Control Prevention District funds, and it is a law that if you purchase out of a specific fund, it's got to be replaced in that fund. So what we do is we flag those vehicles, so when they're auctioned off, Enterprise will treat them separately, then putting the money back into the general fund, we'll put that money back into CCPD. So we already have that system set up where we, and again, the engine catching on fire was before the 3 of us, but I'm assuming Tony made sure that money got put back in the general fund. Any kind of.
Okay, one other question for Chief Bynum. You had made mention that there was Spartan. Is that who you talked about?
Yes, sir.
Why would we not go with Rosenbauer if evidently have we had problems with them because we have, or are they still in business? Or
They're still in business, Councilman. We've had issues. Yes, sir. We have the apparatus committee, myself, and obviously this proposal that they brought to me is a Spartan. And just you and I both know, as we just like buying a Chevrolet or a Ford or any of the above, if you don't have a good track record or you may have some issues, sometimes you say it's time to go a different route. So that's kind of how this has occurred.
were they not able to be corrected though? Because I mean, I'm big into consistency in a fleet, just like you said.
Me too.
Chevrolet and all that. I mean, we're going from KME, and then looks like we got consistent from 05 to 13. Now we're all of a sudden going to get on another horse. You know, are we buying parts from different vendors? And is this, you know, I'm trying to make it as easy as we can since we're, you know, we've made the choice to, you know, make our fleet services a lot smaller operation. Does it really make sense to change from Rosenbauer, or can we not work out the issues? And
Councilman, the motors are still Cummins motors. They're the same transmissions in the Spartans. The mechanical pieces, they're the same vendors that we use today. It's just a different branding on it. You know, I don't want to go into great detail about customer service and different things like that. You know, Spartan and Pierce, they're two big vendors of today. They've made a very big inroad into customer service. They come to our fleet. They come to Haltom City to make repairs. They go above and beyond both those vendors. So I'm looking towards customer service and keeping our trucks in service. And that's what I'm hearing, what I understand from other cities have gone to these Pierce and Spartan apparatus. So to come back to really to answer your question about Rosenbauer, the name Rosenbauer, yeah, we're looking at Spartan, but the motor, the transmission, the essentials, our shop, we have local. Cummins is right here on 35, so it's a little bit larger horsepower motor, and so I think that our fleet will still be in good shape servicing the engines and the transmissions and so on and so forth.
okay, well, if they're the same, then we made the choice in 2012 and 2013 to stay with them. Sell me on why they're not, Rosenbauer's not. And did we even bid them? Did they bid this?
No, Rosenbauer did not bid this. No, sir.
Were they not offered the opportunity to bid it, or?
No, sir. And we're going to go through HGAC on the purchase on the apparatus, and that's how the engine pricing in the Rosenbauer, the Spartan, the Pierce, the big engine manufacturer, truck engine, truck ladder manufacturers. It's just they're all very competitive. So pricing, they'll probably come back in about the same price.
Who else bid this besides Spartan?
Pierce.
So Spartan and Pierce are the only two.
And they're local. Spartan has a shop in Mansfield. Pierce has a shop in Denton. Our neighbors around us have gone to Pierce and Spartan, and I'm not saying that's our decision because of that. It's just track record, dependability, service, the things that we need in the fire department.
Okay. I'd still like, if have an opportunity, I'll visit with you on it.
Councilman, we can get a bid from Rosenbauer. I can bring it back at the next council meeting so you can see that. And by all means, you know, I do have an apparatus committee, and it's ultimately my decision on that with the direction of the manager and the council on what we actually spend money on. And if we come back with Rosenbauer as the best option, then that's what we'll have to go with, you know, depending on funding. Same way with Spartan or Pierce or any other apparatus we go with. So
What was Pierce's estimate?
same price. They all kind of know what you're pricing out, and they all, you know, the market. So they know the number, and they know that we need something very reasonable, something that's a quick turnaround, something that we don't have to do a lot of specking. This particular truck is a Houston spec. It has a 750-gallon tank. Our trucks are typically 500-gallon tanks for the water. This has a reel in a different place than where we really want it, but we're trying. The direction I gave them is get something we can turn around quickly. That's something that's already on the line, that already has a chassis that we can move forward quickly with. That's a dependable piece of apparatus.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fowler. Are there any other questions or comments from the council for Chief Bynum or Ms. Fung? Seeing none. Excellent presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
sir.
Council.
Moving right along to our regular agenda. Agenda item number 1, the minutes of December 5th, 17th. I'm sorry, December 5th, 11th, and the 18th. Mr. Camacho.
Yes, sir. I did want to make a correction. There was a correction on the minutes after you have received went back and looked on the minutes on page 3 on December 11th with Councilmember Fowler. When he made his motion, I had taken it short from my notes, but it is corrected and it's now updated to where Councilmember Fowler made a motion to with recommendations received from the planning and zoning, with the exception of changing the final condition that the vehicles on site higher than 7 feet be located on the fire lane to the west and to the south of the existing fire lane. First reading. And I didn't go that depth into detail, but I felt it was necessary to do that on these set of minutes because that was a specific item that was on Glenna's deal necessary for the first reading. Okay. But other than that, everything else, I didn't change any on the other 2 sets of minutes.
Okay. We are in line for a motion with the corrections as stated by our city secretary. Dr. Trung.
Mayor and Council, I go ahead and make a move to approve 3 minutes, especially the one on December 5th with a correction from Mr. Art Camacho just read, and December 11, 2017, December 18th. Man, thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion for approval of the minutes. Councilmember Thompson.
Yes, Mayor, this is for a second.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion for approval in a second. If you would please signify your votes. Motion passes unanimous with Councilmember Ricky Brown being absent this evening. Moving on to agenda item number 2, the general election for May of 2018. Mr. Camacho.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just read this real quick. This is a resolution, and the Texas Election Code specifies that the first Saturday in May shall be a uniform election date. The City of Haltom City will hold a general election on May 5th, 2018 to elect council places 3, 4, 5, and 6. The places in the general election will be for a 2-year term. And in the past, we've held a joint election with Tarrant County because of they own the electronic voting system, and it has been approved by the Secretary of State and is compliant with all the accessibility requirements for person with disabilities set forth by the Texas Election Code. The cities, towns, independent school district, college district, and water district in Tarrant County will hold elections to the uniform date of May 5th, 2018. Therefore, it is desirable that these entities to hold a joint election with the Tarrant County Elections Administration to share the equipment, services, supplies, and administrative costs. And the election costs will be shared between participating political subdivisions, but the county does not yet know how many entities will be participating. And staff recommend the City Council approve resolution R 2018-00101, authorizing a joint election with Tarrant County and calling for the general election to be held on May 5th, 2018. And this is just for the general election for the council places only. It does not have anything to do with the bond election.
Thank you, sir. So, any questions or comments from the council for that, regarding that? Okay, we're in line for a motion. Again, this is for places 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the city council. Councilmember Grove.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Resolution Romeo-2018-001-001 for a general election for places 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion for approval. Councilmember Thompson.
Yes, Mayor, that's for second.
Okay, thank you. Motion for approval in a second. If you would please signify your votes. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you, council. Moving right along to agenda item number 3, being ordinance number O-2017-029-15. Ms. Batchelor, welcome.
Evening, Mayor and Council. This is a second reading for consideration and/or action on an application of Don Denman of Denman Commercial for a conditional use permit for a wrecking auto salvage yard in the M1 Industrial and M2 Heavy Industrial District in accordance with zoning ordinance O-2002-3215 and section 42-121 on lots 3 through 5 of block 29, lots 1 through 3 of block 30, abstract 1424 tract 2D, and lot 6R of block 29 out of the Watauga Edition, locally known as 6001 and 6035 Huddleston Street. On November 28, 2017, the P&Z recommended conditional approval of CU 1217 by a vote of 4-0 with stipulations outlined on Exhibits A and B. And on December the 11th, 2017, City Council approved ordinance number O-2017-2915 by a vote of 7-0 with expansion of designated area on Exhibit B. If you'll look at the monitor here, this is the property that's being, for the conditional use permit. The plat will be coming later. There's an administrative thing that Mr. Denman needs to take care of. And this is the expanded use of Exhibit A, the design standards that no vehicles on site taller than 7 feet will be located anywhere other than what is shown within the boundaries of the red lines on Exhibit B. Originally, it was just this area here to the south of the fire lane. Now it's the south and the west of the fire lane. And I'm available for any questions. The applicant's representative is also here this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Batchelor. Are there any questions or comments from the council for Ms. Batchelor? Excellent presentation. I don't see any. Okay, seeing no questions or comments, we are in line for a motion. Let's see here. Councilmember Fowler.
Mayor, move for approval of ordinance number O-2017-029-15, conditional use -012-17 on second reading.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Trong.
Mayor and Council, I'm second.
Thank you, Dr. Trong. Councilmember Watkins, do you have a question or comment? Okay, we have a motion for approval in a second. If you would please signify your votes. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you, council. Moving right along to agenda item number 4, being resolution number R-2018-002-1. Mr. Phelps, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Idea Schools, which is a charter school, it stands for Individuals Dedicated to Excellence and Achievement, had recently purchased property at 5719 Lower Birdville. In this, they want to get a site plan approved, but it requires some deed restrictions to be removed. And this is the area that we're talking about, and I'm going to ask that Mr. Peter Hayes in just a moment come up here. He's with Project Management Services Incorporated. He'll be a representative for Idea Schools. But what it comes down to is that, and I'm fixing to show you the site plan, is that they have to, these are residential use only lots, and they have to get that restriction. Everybody that owns lots in here has to agree to that. Now, when they purchased this land from Total Energy, they also purchased some of these lots. So there's one here. They have agreed, this landowner. This property owner has not yet. And then the city has these lots here that's highlighted in blue that has these restrictions on them. So with that, I'll show you. This is one of the site plans that, and I think it has to do a lot with their parking and their queuing. This here's Orville Court, where those lots I just showed you were. This is the one that I believe agreed. This landowner here has not yet agreed, but I'll let Mr. Peter Hayes come up here, and he can explain exactly what they're trying to, or requesting. I think he has a few slides after this too, but that should give enough information that he can take it from here.
Good evening.
Hi,
As Mr. Phelps presented, there's a deed restriction that limits the use of the northern boundary of these lots, which limits our ability to, in our minds at least, maximize the efficiency of the site plan. So we're requesting that council consider waiving this deed restriction so that we can implement this kind of plan. We do have a second plan that could work without this, although we don't feel like it's optimal. But if Ms. Miller, who owns the lot on the end, and City Council considers approval, then we would be able to implement, as I said, a more efficient plan, a little more queuing, same amount of parking, but it's, as you can tell, a bit compressed and tight for use for a school. So that is the goal. We have a few other slides here. This just depicting the lots and areas that are affected on Orville Court. And then Mr. Phelps asked I show some images, although we're still in planning, still going through staff on getting approvals, but some prototype designs of what the school looks like on some of the branding and imagery be very similar to that kind of depiction, just to get an idea. So.
And sir, if you would, do you mind just stating your name for the record?
I apologize. Peter Hayes with PMSI. I'm the owner's representative for Idea Public Schools for Developments.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the council for Mr. Hayes? Dr. Trung.
You know, I heard about charter school, but not in Haltom City here. Would you tell me the reason why you want to open a school here? Because our public school is not, meet the demand for the citizen here, or what?
Well, Idea Public Schools has a target population and an objective, and Haltom City does have a demographic that's very appealing to Idea. They do target underserved communities and have a great track record. 100% of their students matriculate to college, and so and they have a commitment and a goal to get into the communities that need that type of service for underserved schools versus wealthier areas that have private school venues and other ways to get opportunities that Idea can provide for free.
How many similar schools like this you already built in the state of Texas or in the nation, or what?
There are, by definition, it get a little confusing. I believe Idea has 62 schools. Now, a school is divided as lower and upper, so about 32 or 34 throughout campuses throughout Texas. In the Rio Grande Valley, San Antonio, Austin, and now, in El Paso, we're launching schools, as well as in Fort Worth.
And maybe my last question is how charter school compare to the independent school district? I mean,
well,
I know you say 100% student went to go to college. That's pretty good rate, but it is a competition or something like this. I want to learn, you know.
Well, Councilman, that's kind of a broad question, because there's a lot of independent schools, a lot of very high-performing independent schools that do very good for the area. But I can say that in most communities that have a larger, most school districts that are in concentrations of underserved residents usually have some struggling with performance, and Idea has got a formula that, as I said, is able to move students through and get 100% of their students accepted to universities. So it's a pretty huge track record. Obviously, the demand is huge. They only take students by lottery, and it wouldn't be uncommon for them to have 1,000 students in waiting to get into the schools because there's only so much, only so many opportunities they can provide. It's a pretty small segment of the entire student population in the state of Texas that they can actually impact.
Ms. Powell, I understand that one of the residents there still opposed, right?
That's correct, sir.
And what if that resident still oppose about charter school bill in there? What our council can do about that?
Well, I think that the attorney might be better answering that question if you don't mind.
Councilmember Trong, my understanding of the circumstances is the city owns 4 lots that are also subject to these deed restrictions, and then a private property owner owns a 5th lot. If any of those owners does not agree to this, then that might be an issue of whether or not those lots can be used for the purposes that the Idea School wants to use them for. But whether or not the other property owner is going to agree to release the deed restrictions, I don't know, and I really don't think that's anything that the city can become involved with.
Yes, sir. The reason I ask because we might be please you, but we have to please our citizens too, and that's what my question is, Ms. Wang. Thank you. Appreciate that, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Trong. Just a question for you. You mentioned more than once the term underserved. Can you expand on that? What is your definition of underserved?
Well, target communities are usually based on household income and mostly based on household income. So they're targeting communities where household incomes are below a certain level, which, there's thresholds, but that's what they're focusing on.
But what would that have to do with their current level of education they're receiving through their public school system? If you're saying they're underserved,
well, the trends are, Mr. Mayor, I guess I could be more than happy to bring an idea to present on the demographics and performance and basically the trends in the state and the country for performance of schools for lower income families. So in areas though, there's a lot of evidence that basically they don't get the same kind of education when we get to both minority and low income residents don't get the same opportunities in the education level that middle or higher income people do.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Let's see. Moving right along, we'll start with Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. A few quick questions, and I'm not here to debate. I'll preface my comments that I do have a child that attends a charter school, and I'm an advocate of both the public school system as well as charter schools. So that not being necessarily germane to what we're talking about here, but it's just, I think there's a need, and competition's good at a certain, as long as the competition's fair. Quick question. We're tasked with, y'all are the property owner of the largest majority of lots that back up to Orville Court there, where your first proposal was brought up. Could you bring that back? Right there. So y'all are the largest property owner of those, other than the 2 plus what the city owns.
That is correct.
Okay. And y'all purchased that in one purchase with Total. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you look at potentially, because one of our needs in our community is to, we're looking at, future development of residential, upgrading our housing stock, things like that. So, I'm not necessarily a proponent of taking away potential residential lots to provide parking lot. Did y'all, and I know it may be out of bounds, but did y'all look at the property on Lower Birdville, where if you see Lower Birdville there, yes, Did y'all look at acquiring any of those to help on the traffic flow? Or have y'all approached those?
Yes, sir, and we're working with staff on traffic right now, but we actually, part of the sale is this block, right, these two lots right here.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, these residences aren't on the market. We're just struggling to find a critical mass of real estate that we can launch a school, and it's very difficult. And so we bought as much was available at the time within reason. Of course, charters don't have the same resources to go just tax somebody for land, so we have the challenge of trying to figure out how to acquire enough property, enough critical mass to at a certain price point. But these residences were not on the market, and so we did not pursue those.
Well, and I understand, and understand we're tasked with the responsibility of making sure we get as much ad valorem opportunity for our citizens as, that's our job also. So,
yes,
taking these out of potential development to put them in as far as parking, I don't know that I'm necessarily in support of that, but I would like to hear some more. I think that's all the questions I have currently, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Fowler. Councilmember Grove.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hayes, how many students is IDEA, and what grade levels are we talking about for this facility?
It would be pre-K through 12.
Okay, so okay. And how many students in that total?
Approximately 1,500.
1,500. And are you guys aware that Birdville just built 2 new schools in Haltom City just recently? West Birdville and Birdville elementary schools?
No, I'm not.
Okay, and so I'm just trying to figure out. The demographics that you're trying to pull from, and we just had 2 new schools to service our community, and so I'm just trying to figure it out.
Mr. Councilman, we're pretty aware of the competition.
Yep.
And we're usually pretty good about not locating ourselves around a high-performing school. And I don't think IDEA is too concerned about their ability to actually draw students based on their historical performance. So we do look at all those characteristics of our sites, both on demographics and our competition. And if we have a high-performing school just down the block, it's pretty good odds that we won't be launching a school in that area, in that particular site.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Grove. Councilmember Watkins.
Let's go back to the underserved again. I listened, but I'm not sure I heard what I wanted to hear. Excuse me. Who are we saying is underserved? Haltom City or the area? Or?
It would be not necessarily a city at large. It would be a particular area within a city that has a high concentration of low-income residences.
Well, that narrows it down good, but I don't know a lot about charter schools, but I keep thinking that people from all over can come to your charter school. And so, as with our parks and some of the other things we have, we've got a piece of property that's not drawing us any tax, and we're bringing everybody else in. I believe charity begins at home, and so underserved. I think, in my mind, I'm thinking you got this great area that's underserved, not the area that I'm more interested in. I am kind of one-way that way.
I do understand, Mr. Councilman, and it is a challenge because it is lottery-based. There's a lot of on-the-ground recruitment going on to make sure we get as much of the local residents engaged and are aware, so that we can draw in as much as the local Haltom City community as we can to serve this immediate area. Although we can't stop people from other areas outside of Haltom City from trying to enroll, but we do make a strong effort to try to focus on the immediate area. It's beneficial to the school to have students walking. There's less traffic. And we do think that there's a great opportunity and a great, just a great opportunity to recruit and do good things in Haltom City. And we think there's a need. We'll do our best to make sure we get as many of the local residents as engaged as possible.
Well, the walking part is, I've got, the last two I've had was great-grandchildren. They won't let you let them walk. If you walk a block, you're liable to, the parent or grandparent, in my case, great-grandparent, will get thrown in jail. So I don't know how much walking there'll be in between these places in the school.
With the council's indulgence, I've got 3, potentially 4 citizens here who'd like to speak. Can we let them speak and then we'll come back to the council? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. We have Mr. Richard Davis.
I'll yield to Mr. Tolbert.
You'll yield? Okay. Mr. Tolbert?
Joe Tolbert, 7909 Forest Hills Court, North Richland Hills. I'm currently serving as a school board president for VISD. City manager, mayor, and council, appreciate you listening to me. Before I say anything, Dr. Tron, just on behalf of the school district, we would just want to say our condolences to you. You're a public servant, and to be here tonight after what you've gone through recently, the city ought to be proud of your service, sir. I would like to just introduce a few folks that are here tonight. Felt it was important to be here. Dr. Brown is our superintendent. I'm sure you guys know. Katie Bowman is head of our finances. I didn't know Skip was here. Skip is here, and he's head of personnel. Richard Davis is also on the board, and Kelvin Dilks and Whitney Harding is also on the school board. And by the way, we're here for several reasons. We always like a chance to get to see you guys and to get to talk to you and communicate. It's a partnership, and we always want to continue that partnership. Just like any relationship, my wife would tell you, that it could always be better. And so at any time you guys want to or need to talk to us or have concerns about something we're doing at BISD, we're here for you. And if we're not here for you, you pound on the door because we will be here for you. We are proud of the fact that we, as Councilman Grove mentioned, we're proud that we put in 2 new elementary schools recently. A bond committee is being formed at this time. It is our hope, of course it's out of our control obviously, but we're hoping that Haltom Middle will be seriously considered. Now obviously the need and the state of the facility will be things that committee will decide. From our experience with the charter school in North Richland Hills, we lost quite a few students. About half of them came back within a year, some of them less than a year. So we have a high turnover rate of those students that leave, come back. We do have to get them back up to level once they come back. Now that's the North Richland Hills experience. I'm not talking about idea, but we do have to bring those kids up to level once they've been gone for a year. We have to bring them back up to our standards in Birdville. Also, Haltom High School, as you know, we constantly have upgrades up there, and we're always voting to do things there to spend money at that high school. I'm proud of this school. I think you guys are too, especially the football team had some great success this year. It was kind of fun for everybody. I think you got a great coach there, by the way. We are against item number 4, as you might expect. One of the things that was brought up by Councilman Watkins that I think is worth considering is you will be providing police, you will be providing fire, you will be providing services that cities provide, water, sewer, and all those things. This will take this off your tax rolls. They're taxed like a public school. They will not be paying any taxes. So all that beautiful property right there off of 121 and all the exciting things that I think are going to be happening, you guys are seeing it, and I talk to constituents all the time about Haltom City and what's happening with your residential stock and the exciting things that are happening there. I think what's going to follow, as always, is 121. It'd be disappointing to see that fall off the tax rolls, be able to pay for fire engines and things like that, but you can't pay for those things when they're not paying taxes. Anyway, again, we're proud of our partnership. That's all we wanted to do is just say hi, that we are opposed to this. It seems a little odd. I can't undo deed restrictions placed on my property by a prior owner. It seems a little odd that we're even talking about this. Mr. Olson, I'm sure, has talked to you about that, but unless you were the one that put the deed restriction in the first place, you don't have a right to go back and undo what somebody before you did. That's not the way the law works, but I'm sure you all have already discussed that. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Tolbert. Kelvin Dilks. Mr. Dilks.
Kelvin Dilks, 7113 Stonevilla Circle, North Richland Hills. Also a property owner here in Haltom City over in Herrick Court. I will tell you, when I sat on that parking lot in Haltom City campaigning, I spent a lot of time with a lot of y'all. And one thing I committed to was going in and seeing the schools. And luckily for me, I got to see these 3 elementary schools that we're talking about. And when I went into those buildings, I want you to know I saw well-oiled machines. I saw teachers teaching. I saw students achieving. Are we perfect? No, but we're humans, and we're working hard. We have some of our best administrators in place in these schools, and we're proud of these schools. And we've committed. You have my commitment. You know my commitment to Haltom City. You know, I taught 25 years at Haltom High School, and I love Haltom City. And my commitment is strong, and our commitment is strong to Haltom City. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dilks. Mr. Hudson, it didn't have an agenda item. Did you want to speak on this agenda item, or was it? No? Okay. Thank you, members of the school board, for being here, and also for the 2 who had spoken. Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Do you mind coming back up? And as you're coming, Mr. Dilks, thank you, and the school board for being here, and I did vote for you, and I'm proud to say I did. So, Mr. Tolbert, yes, I had an opportunity. Myself and Mr. Brown went to one of the bond committee kickoff programs, the breakfast that y'all provided, and Dr. Brown was very receptive to us working collaboratively on some park issues and some things. But anytime y'all are available, we like to have meetings here, so we would like to have y'all on a joint meeting in the near future. That being said, Mr. Hayes, now, what is your position with, I know you're not with IDEA, but explain to me, you're representing them, but from a design standpoint, or?
Yes, sir. I'm assisting IDEA in the management of land acquisition, securing architectural and construction services, managing jobs from basically inception through completion, and turning them over to operations.
And you're really not prepared to answer school-type questions, and I appreciate that, and I don't want to put you on the spot for that. And like I say, we're not here to talk about, y'all are already the property owner. We're here to talk about whether or not we want to lift the deed restrictions that we, as the city of Haltom City, have on the 4 lots in the blue. That's pretty much all that we're tasked to do with tonight. One question: do y'all provide bus service at IDEA, though?
No, sir.
No, sir. Okay. And that's one thing that's part of the infrastructure that we have. We have to take that into account, as part of our decision making. And then you said it's K through 12, and your maximum student body would be about 1,500.
That would be pre-K through 12.
Pre-K. I'm sorry, pre-K through 12. Okay. And regardless of whether or not this deed restrictions lifted, y'all are still planning on moving forward. It just may change conceptually how you arrange your parking.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fowler. Dr. Trong.
When you make presentation the last time, your IDEA school tried to focus to help the minority student, right? That's what I heard.
That is a significant proportion of their population, yes, sir.
And how many minority schools in this population lies here, percentage you've been helping? I mean, each school, with the minority different, like Asian, African American, white, something like that.
I would have to come back with statistics on the different.
The reason I said this, I live here almost 40 years. And I have two sons. One just passed away, but they both graduated from Haltom High. For a long time, school district a little bit different. I was the member of TEE for BISD, and I have learned a little bit. But since that time till now, the BISD here pretty good about diverse city. This is diverse city. The reason I just asked you a question because I don't want the citizen of Haltom City believe your school is focused on minority, and that make the BISD seem like, hey, you not have the minority. Competition is good. To me, you build school, publics. BISD have a lot of school, good competition in America. But if you say you just focus about minority, and what if when you build a school and we come there, majority is different race? That don't make anything good for BISD, and especially the people like me live in Haltom City. I wonder, we pay a lot of tax for public school, BISD, and where's money going? Are you focused on Caucasian or something like this? Because I'm minority myself, and I hope you're thinking about competition. Yes, sure, I agree with you. But talking about you focus minority, I don't. Because the last two schools, they open, I heard bilingual all the time, Spanish and English. That's improved a lot about minority. And, that's my comment about that. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Strong. Councilmember Grow and then Councilmember Fowler.
Mr. Hayes, you said you were in the land acquisition part of the business or part of Idea School?
I assist.
You assist, okay. But were other sites considered for this, maybe in Fort Worth, ISD area instead of Birdville, Independent School District area?
Both.
Both? And how did this site win out over the Fort Worth ISD site?
We're acquiring both.
Oh, are you acquiring? Okay, so you're,
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're learning something new. So you're going to put a school up in the Fort Worth side?
Yes, sir.
Where at?
Cherry Lane.
Cherry Lane? Okay, you got to help me out. Where in Cherry Lane? Oh, Cherry Lane. Oh, Cherry Lane. Okay. All right, very cool. Because you said your idea is underserved kids, and so the schools in this area are pretty, do well. They're not, they're not low performing schools. Haltom High is a nationally recognized high school by USA Today, and so I'm just trying to figure out why did this site get picked? Because Fort Worth has its own issues, and they're not as well off or as well placed a district.
Yes, and we understand that, and that's why IDEA is focusing on Fort Worth also.
Okay, and you mentioned it's a lottery system, so can you explain how that lottery system works?
So there would be openings. IDEA starts in the lower grades and then sixth grade, so they would start with pre-K and first and second and then sixth, and there are only so many students that they can take on within the capacity of the school.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be basically an opening announced, and if they go into lottery where they take in names and they have to basically pick names out of a lottery system. They cannot select students based on anything but if their name comes out of the hat.
Okay, name out of the hat and what grade that name is associated.
Right, openings for a particular grade will be announced, and only applicants for those grades will be taken. And it would be just the first, say, 200 students.
Okay.
And after that, they would have to defer until the following year and reapply.
Okay. And I see there was a phase 1, phase 2. So what's phase 1 of this project?
So phase 1 would be the the lower school, basically the pre-K through
8th grade.
Well, it'll be pre-K through 6th grade. We are building some 8th grade classrooms, but essentially it's meant to house the lower school.
Okay. Elementary.
Gym and cafeteria. And the second phase would be essentially the upper school.
Okay, and that would be
classrooms only at that point, because the infrastructure and the support services are built in phase 1 for the entire school.
And so you're going to have 1 through 8th grade in phase 1, or pre-K through?
It'll grow incrementally over it'll take about 6 years to 7 years to matriculate fully.
Okay.
It's a slow growth.
Yeah, because charter schools, I drive by them. I know nothing about them. I got a friend that has a child in one and is speaking Mandarin.
So it's basically as a student moves up in 1 year, they'll take on new pre-K.
Okay.
They'll take on a new 6th grade, and it'll go on until it's fully matriculated. And at that point, once it's fully matriculated and 6 years down the road, it will be just taking in pre-K. Unless there are slots that open in the lower grades that they have an opportunity to take a student, there'd be a chance to get in by lottery. But otherwise, if you presume, which is not always the case, that every student moves up to and through, they would not take any more except pre-K, which is how it's modeled.
And when do you anticipate opening this facility?
It would be in next year, 2019.
2019, so
August.
August?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the grades that you're going to be opening up with is 1 through 6 or K?
Pre-K 1 to pre-K K 1 and 6, and then every year thereafter we'll be adding up pre-K and 6th.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Grove. Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Trying to get you back on task here a little bit. In your land acquisition portion, I know you did due diligence in looking at this property. You said underserved, and that's understandable, but what formula did y'all use? Did you take into future growth, the demographics change? And because we're going through some change in our community. It was a much older community, and now we're slowly starting to see some changes take place. Did y'all take that? I'm sure you did, but I just need to ask.
Yes, we did. Honestly, the fact is, idea is producing 100% college graduates. If the demographics change, I don't think the results are going to change.
Right.
It's
I understand that. I just didn't know. I mean, when you talk about under serviced kids, underserviced areas, impoverished areas, whatever. I just didn't know if y'all took that into your formula when you were looking at this site. But as far as two questions, you're not doing busing. Walk me through, because I see a drop-off area at what would be the north corner of the building there. That's your secondary plan.
Mm-hmm.
How would it physically work in comparison to your first plan?
They're essentially, the plans wouldn't function. This plan, I must say, is sorry, I get the arrow here. The only difference on this plan, which will be reflected in the next plan, is staff recommended that this entry be moved further away from Orville Court, and that is going to be reflected in either plan we do. This is just an older version of that plan. So essentially, the entry and exit points would not change in either plan. It's really just a matter of parking orientation and queuing is the only difference. The traffic comments from staff will be addressed the same way as far as entry and exit in either condition.
So what would the necessity of I mean, I understand the queuing's different, but what would be the necessity of the previous plan to this?
Some queuing length increase on the interior of the campus, which is always helpful. Some more breakout area and play areas. It's a lot of students to try and squeeze down. So we could still have breakout areas in the plan over here, but it's quite a distance to walk over here to get students to play in that area. So it just makes for a more efficient plan. We are able to flip some of the operations, mainly cafeteria and gym, in this plan to something we feel is more ideal than this plan. So there are a couple of functional nuances that we think that will just make the site perform better if we had the option to push push out to the north.
How many lots do you own on Orville Court? Sorry, I didn't count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yep. 8.
I believe 7. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is owned by another resident. So 8. 8. I apologize. 8.
Okay. 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 And if you, a question from Mr. Batchelor, could it be, well, I guess it wouldn't matter without a structure. They could use that for play area, but they couldn't build any structure on it simply because it would be, how could they plat that without, those are still platted lots, are they not?
Correct. So that they, as part of their development, replatting the property is part of their development.
But would they be able to replat without erasing those lot lines?
Councilmember Fowler, I'll address that. The answer is no. They cannot replat and remove any covenants or restrictions on the property. They have to deal with the restrictions
that are in place.
They can encompass the property.
Those on the replat.
Right.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Hayes, for all your questions.
You're welcome.
Answering.
Are there any other questions or comments from the council for either Mr. Hayes or Ms. Batchelor, or Wayne, our legal counsel? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Thank you.
We are in line for a motion, so Councilmember Fowler.
Mr. Mayor, I move for denial of resolution number R-2018-002-001, the removal of the residential deed restrictions on the city-owned property.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion for denial. Councilmember Thompson.
Mayor, this is for a second.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion for approval and for denial and a second. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, if you would please signify your votes. Motion for denial passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Moving right along to agenda item number 5, which is ordinance number O-2018-010-01. Ms. Faust. Welcome. Welcome to 2018.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Please excuse my rough voice today. I'm not feeling so well, along with many others. I, along with our legal counsel, worked on updating our ordinance in order to allow Fathom to operate business. We made some very minor changes as we went through this with corrections to department and our personnel. That was the majority of the changes made. We also updated any area that identified a cost. We referenced the fee schedule, which is approved by you guys through on a yearly basis or updated as need be, along with our budget process via resolution. And then in section 98-46, we included a line that states to recognize the right of the city's billing contractor to collect payment on its local utility office. Just want to let you know there are no changes to any dollar amounts, any fees, or rewording of any of those. This was simply updates to correct department personnel references along with the fee schedule reference.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the council for Ms. Faust? Councilmember Fowler.
I have some comments, no questions tonight. One of the things we have to be cognizant of is the increase in water rates and sewer rates that have been ongoing for the last since I've been on the council. We've looked at somewhere from 8 to 10% a year over the last three to four budget cycles. I'm in support of this. I think the Fathom was an excellent move by staff. I want to thank city manager, assistant city manager, you, Ms. Faust, for working diligently to make that happen. I think it's in the long run it's going to be a big benefit to to all our citizens. One thing I do think, I'm in support of the changes that are made here, but I think there's still things that we need to look at that the council may not be aware of, and a lot of the things you and I have sit and visited on some of my water bills, because I get furious myself, no different than a lot of the other citizens that are here in the community. You had made the suggestion, one of your things was talking about tiered water system. You've had experience with that. I think that it is in the best interest of council, and it is in the best interest of staff, to look at doing some things that make the water billing system a bit more equitable. I think you and I agree with that. I think, and I would like for you to be able to, I would like to, in supporting this, I would like to see that we, in the very near future, and I mean the next month, that we ask, Mayor, if we could task staff to do a workshop that deals with this. That way we can make, because in passing this ordinance, no different than the existing ordinance, we have the ability to do any rate, fee changes, anything upon the council at any time, and that doesn't change anything. So I think there's some things that we can do that will probably make the system a little more equitable across the board, or that maybe we at least need to take into consideration. We may not do them, but we I think should take them into consideration. So I would just like to ask that take place, and see if y'all think that that's something that's beneficial. It's bad enough to open your taxes and they go up, and you open them up once a year, but you open your water bill every month. And I get calls about water, and I complain myself about water. So I think that there's, I think that that's probably one of our highest responsibilities, is to make sure that not only, and I feel like we do, our public works does provide a great water service and a great water system for our citizens, but I think that we have to do everything that's within our means, and take opportunity to make any adjustments that we can to make it fair and equitable across the board.
We can certainly do that. Are there any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, thank you, Ms. Faust, for the excellent presentation. So we are in line for a motion. Councilmember Grove.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion that we approve ordinance Oscar-2018-010-01, amending Chapter 98 Water and Sewer, first reading.
Okay, we have a motion for approval on first reading. Councilmember Fowler.
Mr. Grove. I'm sorry, Councilmember Grove, would you be willing to add in that we provide for a workshop within the next, say, 30 days or so to look at?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I request the mayor have a workshop scheduled so the citizens can come and listen to and provide feedback, because I know that is a hot subject on several social media platforms. So that way we can educate them on how the water rates, or how we get our water, how we process our water, how the sewer, that there are multiple facets to your water bill, and so that way they can have an understanding, and then understand how Fathom is going to play a part in this system.
And I appreciate that, and with that I would like to second.
Okay. consider it done. Okay, a motion for approval and a second with the stipulations. If you would, please signify your votes. Motion passes unanimous, and we'll get a meeting scheduled within the next 30 days. Moving on to agenda item number 6, which is a final plat being P-018-17. Ms. Batchelor, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor. This is to conduct a public hearing and consider action on application of Bradley D. Copeland on behalf of CC 820 Beach Grand LLC Limited for approval of a final plat creating Grand on Beach being Block 1, Lot 6 of an addition to the City of Haltom City G.B. Stanley Survey, Abstract 1378, located in the PD Plan Development Multifamily Residential District containing approximately 15.4 acres of land locally known as 4100 Northern Cross Boulevard. The applicant proposes to create one multifamily residential lot with 304 residential units in accordance with Ordinance Number 982615, the Barrington at Beach, which was zoning case 1198, which was approved by council at final reading on August 24th of 98. All amenities and all open space areas will be maintained by the property owners. This would be considered phase 2 of the original project. This property has changed owners and names since its original approval. On January 2nd, 2018, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of P 1817 by a vote of 6-0. Other than discretionary matters for the council, the application is administratively complete and meets the standards of the subdivision ordinance. The legal notice regarding the public hearing was published in the December 8, 2017 Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Notification was mailed to all property owners within 200 feet on December 13, 2017. 5 property owners were notified, with 1 in favor with no objection. Parkland dedication, section 78107D, states any developer who desires to pay a fee or construct public improvements in lieu of the dedication of parkland may make a proposal to the City Council, who may agree to accept the payment of a fee or the construction of improvements in lieu of dedication or some portion thereof. Parkland dedication fee for 304 units at $250 apiece is $76,000. Section 78110 states if a development is proposed to be a private development where no public streets are dedicated for use by the public, the developer may receive a credit against the park dedication requirements for the construction of private parks, recreation or open space areas, and amenities within its development. No such private recreational amenities shall satisfy more than 50% of the total park dedication requirement. That would be $38,000. If you'll look at the screen up here, this is the property for development. This is Bellagio. This is Beach Street with commercial development along here. This is the layout with utility easements, drainage easements going over into Fort Worth. So this is the plat. This is the development of the parking lot, the buildings, the green space, which there's a better picture coming up in just a second. Entrance is from Northern Cross with an egress along Glenview. This is a table from the subdivision ordinance showing the potential of 50% credit with these 5 areas, which they have provided. And this is showing their green space with landscaping. Look at the legend, which I passed out to y'all up there on the dais earlier, showing the 5 different bullet points for their potential 50%, which y'all have to agree upon or recommend what percentage they're allowed. This area over here is an easement, so that's why you don't see quite as much landscaping as far as trees, but it is a green space because it is a utility easement. And if you have any questions, I'm available, and applicant is here.
Thank you, Ms. Batchelor. Are there any questions from the council for Ms. Batchelor or the applicant? Okay, seeing none. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. I'll now open up the public hearing at, 8:45 for anyone in the audience wishing to speak regarding this agenda item.
Thank you for your time. My name is David Strauss. I live at 127 Pinnacle Drive in New Braunfels. I'm a development partner with Brad Copeland. I have also here today, I have Mark Hill with BGO Architects, the architect on the project, and one of my partners, Eli Ellis, also with Copeland Commercial. One thing it's a technicality, but the lawyers love technicalities. The limited shouldn't be in there. It's purely 820 Beach Grand LLC. If somebody wants to be real picky, we're really excited about the property in the development. We started working on it about a year ago with staff, and it's been a long road, but we've ended up, I think, with a real good development for the residents that are going to live there and enjoy living in Haltom City. I brought with me and was distributed a little handout of a sister project that has the same look and finishes. And a little bio on the players in the company. If there's any questions on those, be more than happy to answer those. We've been in the business a while. I've been in it since 1969, so tells you that I'm the old guy. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Are there any questions or comments from the council for Mr. Strauss? Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you for this little portfolio, Mr. Strauss. I want you to drive all the way from New Brunswick to not be able to answer a question. Graystar, just help me real quick. Is Graystar one of y'all's holdings also, or is that the property management separate from construction?
Yes, it's a fee. They're a fee-driven company. Graystar is one of the largest apartment management companies in the country. I've worked with them for over 20 years. They're the only people that I ever use.
So y'all will still hold the property. They'll just do the property
That's correct.
management.
That's correct.
Okay.
And there are people that do things better than we do, and they are one of them.
Sure. Do they? What other areas do they manage? And if you don't mind me asking, in the metropolitan?
Oh well, they're nationwide. So, but here in this area, they have a number of properties in the Fossil Creek area.
Okay.
So they're familiar with the area, and they were very instrumental. We don't just use them as management per se. I mean, that's what they do. But before we ever started saying what kind of product we wanted to put here, or how many units, or what those units looked like, and the unit mix and sizes and stuff, they were instrumental in that development of that pre-development process.
Okay, and I know that, just so you'll know, I know staff's been very excited about y'all's, forthcoming and looking very forward to y'all being part of our community also. So they feel very comfortable with y'all's product. So
thank you. It's really been a pleasure working with staff, and certainly we've had discussions about some details, but they've all been very fruitful. They've made us a better product here, I think, and better product for y'all, and it fits the city very well.
Thank you.
Specifically, this sewer line easement that, I mean, we're not even going to use it, but it's a 30-foot easement for the city's future development for properties north of Northern Cross, so that they can get sewer down to the lift station.
Okay. So, man, thank y'all for working with us on that.
Oh, it's great fun.
Are there any other? Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Are there any other questions from the council for Mr. Strauss? Councilmember Thompson and Councilmember Grove.
On your units that you are going to have, are they going to be like one bedroom only, or are you going to have varying sizes?
We have 304 units. There's 178 one bedrooms, 118 two bedrooms, and we have 8 3 bedrooms. We put in a handful of threes because there are people that want an office. They need 2 bedrooms and an office. So we're an adult type of product. It's not a kid-driven property.
That was my next question. Yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember Grove.
Mr. Strauss, when do you anticipate breaking ground on this?
No later than February 1st.
All right.
We're ready.
So it should be
Contractor didn't make it.
Okay.
It was bad traffic, but no, we are ready.
Okay. It's going to be exciting to see it come up.
It's going to be fun.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak regarding this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I'll now close the public hearing at 8:51. And if there are no other questions or comments from the council, we are now in line for a motion. Councilman Grove.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve plat, or I should say final plat, Papa-018-17 for the beach on Grand.
We need to incorporate the parkland percentage in there also,
Okay, so
if we're going to accept the 50% credit. $50 credit, balance of $38,000.
okay, with the 50% credit with a
Parkland dedication
parkland
fee.
dedication with a $38,000 amount. We got that?
We got that.
All right, good.
$38,000.
38,000.
Dr. Trong.
Mayor Casso, I'm second.
Okay, a motion for approval in a second. Councilmember Fowler, do you have a question or comment?
No, I just thought Mr. Strauss volunteered 68,000, didn't you?
Okay, we have a motion for approval and a second. If you would please signify your votes. Motion passes unanimous. Fantastic. We're certainly looking forward to February 1 groundbreaking. Moving right along to the Visitors and Citizens Forum, we have Mr. Daniel Bennett. Mr. Bennett, welcome back.
Daniel Bennett, 408 Pemberton, White Settlement, Texas. I'd just like to thank this council for voting for me. It was a rewarding experience for the 6 weeks that I ran. I met quite a few people. I had 21 towns vote for me out of 48 that voted. And I think that's awesome. I think there's a real will for change. And I've set Mayor Avery, I'm going to be really brief. I'm going to have executive session. I have some stuff I'd like to hand out to you after I have my remarks, so we're not looking through paperwork. And I just was able to share with Joe Tolbert and Dr. Brown. It was a momentous occasion. I thought I was going to have to wait until their trustee meeting, but I was able to get them between the two glass doors, and I think they were as dumbfounded as I was when I first saw the information. What I have with me is the result letter from 2015 for the election. I did not run in that election, but the results are wrong. What the results say is that Mr. Pothoff, who's the chairman of the director of TAD, and Mr. Molyneux, who's his right-hand man, shouldn't even be on the board. They've been on that board for 2 years, and they don't belong there. Who does belong there? Terry Moore. I don't know if it's a man or a woman. I don't know. Karina Davis, who's a trustee at Keller ISD. She should be on there. So, in all the subterfuge that TAD's done, they stubbed their toe. They put it right out there for God and country to see. And no one said a word. Even Joe Tolbert just said, well, I looked at Mark Wood, that's who we voted for. I saw his vote total, and then he dismissed it. I hope that isn't how we do our fiduciary responsibilities at our schools. I can tell you why Randy Armstrong, my presiding officer, chose to ignore it, because he is slightly under the chief appraiser. He's over 50 residential appraisers at TAD. It's to his benefit to ignore the letter. He actually votes for the very people that defines his salary, his paycheck, and his pension. That's a sweet deal as a presiding officer of the White Settlement ISD and over 50 residential appraisers. Sure, he would ignore it, but I wouldn't expect Joe Tolbert to ignore it, nor would I expect Dr. Brown. Anyway, I tried to get coffee with Joe. Joe's not returned my emails. He's not called me. So, God bless America. Tonight was a good night. Now, I got this letter through an open records request in August. I took it to the DA's office. DA said you can't prosecute incompetence. Ann Diamond, I actually met Sharon at a meeting. Next day I got an audience in front of the DA. Ann Diamond and a gentleman named Matthew Smyde, criminal side. We sat down. I gave them all what I thought was potential malfeasance or questionable acts on Tad's behalf. They acted on one, dismissed everything else. One thing they dismissed was this letter saying you can't prosecute incompetence. And of course, if there's probably a 6-month window or something. So I waited. After the nominations came out, I went back to Tad, and I went back to the very information officer who runs the board of director board. And I said, Mary, why is your letter off by 1,200 votes? Why is, you say, in 2015, 3,108 votes were cast, but 4,368 were actually cast on your spreadsheet? Why is your letter wrong? And here's the funny thing. If you add up all the summation of all the votes on that letter, it comes to 3,111. They can't even add right, off by 3. So, guess what I get in the mail to my open records request? A completely different letter, backdated to the very same day with all new totals, unsigned by the chief appraiser. Now, if they had just let incompetence alone, well, we just said they're incompetent. We all know Tad punishes everybody in this room through their incompetence. Well, what have they done now? They've manufactured a document, they backdated the document, and they disseminated it through the U.S. Postal Service to me. And very few people have this letter. I give you this letter. I go into everybody that voted for me. I'm sharing this with you. Today I went down. I tried to get a couple mayors, so I have standing, a couple city managers, so I have standings, because I'm afraid DA is going to dismiss this because Mr. Bennett does not have standing. I need somebody that got the letter back in 2015 that was harmed. But if you ask me, everybody was harmed. And this is what I told the DA. I said, who are you going to stand with? Because Crowley's votes were not counted in 2015. They voted on November 5th, never showed up on the spreadsheet. The lady, Angela Winkle, was their city secretary. She is a city manager in Sampson Park. They voted for me too. Got counted this year. I'm sure Angela did nothing different than she did this year that she did 2 years ago. Now, you must have your ballot to the chief appraiser by date certain, which is December 15th. If it's not there, it's not counted. This is the cat watching the mice watching the cheese. We don't know what Tad's doing. We don't know when they did it. We don't know anything. So all I can just is give you the information, and you discern from it what you want. And the criminal complaint, which I filed today, is my cover page. And the supporting documentation is behind it. Thank you very much for your time. And once again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. If you would just start with Ms. Nunn, and we'll pass them this way. Thank you, sir. Mr. Hudson, did you?
My question was already answered.
Okay, good. Okay, seeing no other comments or from anyone from the Visitors and Citizens Forum, we'll move right on to boards and commissions. Let's see, resignations of Board of Commission members. I didn't see any. Do we have one?
Yeah. Ms.
Layla Caraway. Yeah, Layla. Okay. So
resigned from the
yeah,
TIF.
I didn't see that. Yeah. If you would please ratify her resignation with your vote.
Voting to accept her resignation.
Okay, motion passes. Moving right along to no appointments or reappointments. Councilmember Rowe.
Mr. Mayor, I have an appointment to replace Ms. Caraway. Mr. Darren Hudson to be a member on the TIF board.
Okay, Darren Hudson to the
TERS
board. TERS, yeah.
TIF TERS, and his information's on file.
I think they've met a total of once since they were created back in 14, right? Yeah, I have. I think they met once.
I've been on the board for my tenure as a
Hope
councilman.
your schedule is clear because you'll be meeting a lot. So, if you would. Bob, okay. Okay, motion passes unanimous. Mr. Hudson being on the TERS board. Any other? Okay, Bob, Councilmember Watkins.
Yes, I've had a spot empty for a long time. I nominate Karen Hudson for the planning and zoning. Effective 2 weeks from tomorrow. I would recommend that she show up for the tomorrow night, but she won't be a voting member because I don't want to throw her under the train.
Okay. So if you would please,
You'll say effective the 2 weeks from tomorrow.
23rd.
get the second.
I recommend that you show up tomorrow night and see what it looks like.
Okay, so Bob, you want to vote?
Trying.
Okay. Motion passes unanimous. All righty. Are there any others? Okay, seeing none. With that being said, moving right along to attendance requirements. We have Councilmember Brown, who is not with us.
Councilmember Brown is headed, I think, on a mission trip to India. He was leaving out today, so he's out.
Councilmember Fowler?
I move to excuse the absence for a religious trip.
Okey-doke. Councilmember Thompson?
That is for second.
Thank you. Motion would please signify with your votes. Okay, motion passes. Excusing Councilmember Brown's attendance requirement. Okay. Number 10, discussion on items to be placed on future agendas. Councilmember Brown requested that we, for a future, discuss placement for a future agenda. Let me go back here to it. Sure. Yeah, I know. Give me one moment here. I had it open to this page just a moment ago. I didn't say where it is. I know, but he had it on here, what he wanted to discuss.
His email is on the very last page of your
Okay, here we go. Councilmember Brown requested that we discuss placement of the Hudson case. I guess that's the request for, was that a conditional use permit, special use permit for the property on 28th Street? I don't have the specific information in front of me, but it had been brought up before previously, back in September and also in October. Councilmember Brown is requesting that we place it on another meeting so we can further discuss the issue. Councilmember Fowler?
Thank you. I think, and I don't want to speak for Councilmember Brown, but I think part of his, I think he asked it to be put on agenda, but I think, did we not talk about previously putting it with the Planning and Zoning Commission in order to come back as a plan development? Wasn't that part of what was discussed at the time?
We would need direction if you want to send it back to P&Z as for them to develop it as a PD.
And then it would come back to the future agenda.
Right.
Okay.
Because currently it's submitted as a rezone to allow for an existing Cash America to relocate.
Okay. And I have no, I mean, I think that makes more sense and in my opinion, allow it to go back through the channels. You know, me personally, I'm not going to speak for everyone else, but I think that makes more sense to allow it to go through the channels and come back as a planned development, and then it would come before the council from a clean slate at that point. Is that not correct?
Yes. The same modifications that we had stipulated on the ordinance for the rezone would apply to the PD, and in addition, anything else that would be that y'all would want, or P&Z would want.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Basil. I'm sorry, one other question, Mr. Mayor. If this were to be allowed to be placed back on the Planning and Zoning Commission, what would be the date that it would go to the P&Z?
With the notification, we could not make the 23rd, so it would be the second Tuesday in February. Then it would come to y'all for 2 readings since it is an ordinance. So you're looking at fourth Monday in February and then the second Tuesday in March for the 3 public hearings. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Okay. Okay, and it would be because it would need public notification for this?
It's starting a new case
Okay.
because instead of a rezone, it's a PD.
Okay.
If that's what y'all choose.
Okay.
So
So is that-
mid-March.
Is that your recommendation to send it back to the P&Z?
Well, I would think that it would make sense to do that and give them an opportunity to
Okay.
look at it and bring it back to the council and give it, I think that may have been some of the I think some of the council members were fully well aware of what was going on, but then I think there was still maybe some lack of information or confusion possibly on what was, whether or not, I think there was some confusion on whether another facility could locate, whether or not, I think that was up and, kind of indecisive. So I think as long as some of those things could be, I would like to see those aired out and then it come back before the council, me personally.
Okay, so what we're needing is just a general consensus. So is everybody in line with that, or is there any?
No.
No? Okay, so we have one.
Councilmember Fowler, real quick, that would be February 26th on the first reading, and then March the 12th on the second reading, if it's agreed to.
It would be February 26th and then
March the 12th.
March 12th.
for council.
For the final second reading, if it goes through P&Z and goes through this whole situation.
Okay, so I guess I'll just start down with Miss Nunn. I know you have laryngitis, but I mean, are you sending it back to the P&Z? Okay, not trying to put words in your mouth, but I understand you have to limit your talking. We know Mr. Grow is in opposition to it. Ms. Thompson? Send it back to P&Z. Okay, we know where Mr. Fowler is at. Mr. Watkins? So you're against it altogether? Well, I think it's best to come back to us with a clean slate. Then it's okay. So send it back to P&Z and.
If I was up here doing all the voting all by myself, which I'm not, thank goodness, I would look at it the way it was presented and approved by P&Z, and we can put all kinds of restrictions and all that other. But if everybody else wants to go back, that's fine.
Well, the thing is, it's denied by this council twice, so it's best to go back to the P&Z, I believe, and then bring it back to us. Mr. Olson, did you have a comment or a question?
Let me say this about that. I could be wrong. I was wrong one time before. It came before us, and we turned it down as presented by the Planning and Zoning. It came before us again, whether to look at it again. Is that right? It didn't come for us to vote on the actual item. It came before us like it is
October. Yes.
It came before us like it is tonight, whether we were going to see it again. So we haven't rejected Planning and Zoning's proposal but once.
Dr. Trong, send it back to P&Z. Okay, so you have an exceptional. Yeah.
Mayor, matter of clarification. I mean, what we have on the agenda tonight is your agenda item is discussion on items to be placed on future agendas.
So it's got to come back to the agenda.
Yeah, so the question is, does the council tonight want to put this on a future agenda, say the next city council agenda, to determine whether or not to send this to P&Z or do something different with it? And if that's the case, then you can vote on that now. You can have a motion to put this on your next agenda for consideration at that point in time. We don't have anything on the agenda tonight to vote on the specific case.
Yeah.
What we have is just the request for future agenda items. So that would be the action taken tonight.
So we need a formal motion.
We need a formal motion and a vote on whether or not to put this on the future agenda for determination of reconsideration.
Now, we don't have the specific case number regarding this. Can we just term it as the Hudson case on 28th Street? Or
I bet Ms. Batchelor can probably...
It'll be a new case number because it's a different type of zoning case.
Okay.
So there'll be a new one issued.
Okay. So how would we...
No, but I think since it's just a continuation of the previous ordinance that was killed, a month ago now, I would say you would reference that and say, hey, we want to have an agenda item for next city council meeting to discuss sending this thing down to P&Z as a new case. And so I think we have to reference the original to say, hey, this original has to go back down to P&Z as a plan development, generating a new case number that would come before us.
Yes.
There you go.
It was ordinance number 2017-021-15.
And for the record, I'm still no.
Okay, so how should the motion read?
The motion would be to place that agenda item on the next city council agenda for reconsideration.
Okay. Whoever's making the motion, do you have that? Councilmember Fowler.
Pardon me, Mayor, I move for reconsideration to be placed on the next previous agenda item numbered O-2017-021-15, and that would be first reading. Is that be correct, Mr. Olson?
It'd be
just one.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
a decision item for the council.
Okay, that would be my motion.
Okay, Councilmember Thompson.
That would be for second.
Thank you. A motion for approval in a second. If you would please signify your votes. Okay, motion passes 5-1. Okay. That being said, we have no other business. I do want to say one thing to Dr. Trong. Dr. Trong, we certainly want to send our condolences from the City Council and myself and the staff on behalf of you losing your son recently. We want to say how sorry we are, and we certainly want to extend our condolences to you for that. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and everyone. Pray for my son, and the funeral will be on Saturday. And I hope you keep praying for my son. And he's such a young guy. He graduated from Haltom High in 1995.
Young man.
And that's a big loss from my family. And one more time, thank you, Mayor, Council, all the citizens in the town. Man, already sent me a bunch of messages. And the funeral on Saturday, I expect over 1,000 people would be there. And thank you.
Thank you. With that being said, we'll now adjourn at 9:15.